All right, welcome in. And give everything a few minutes just to load up. Welcome if you're watching the recording. I had to get to this spot so that I can share with you guys and you ladies, kings and queens. It's been a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a minute, but I give myself that grace because I am the hermit as well as the scales. So that's going to happen with me, and I just accept it as a part of how things work. So if you're new or returning, hello, greetings, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Yin Nefer, aka Jennifer, and today I want to continue a conversation that actually started a while ago, but since so much is going on around these topics, I wanted to get on here and share. So there's been a lot in the news about the DOGE and the Department of Education a little bit. Um, and what I see as basically the AI coming in to do the work of humans. And as a teacher, so I am a teacher, a math teacher, and I have been an educator for almost 20 years now. Before I decided to become an educator, I was an engineer. I do have a bachelor's of science in industrial engineering, and I thought that was going to be the field that I went into, but this life had some other things planned, so I did not, even though I have the bachelor's in engineering, do have a master's in learning and teaching, and for about the past 15 years, I have been studying um, metaphysics, essentially, is what the whole of that is. And so I have some unique insights that I want to share. So the Doge, is this new thing that is being ushered in by Elon Musk. And what I gather from that is that basically he's in the role of like a consultant to the government. And he's being contracted to work in the role of a consultant to better um, run the government. Now, this is what I feel like is being presented. Now, what's really happening, that's a whole separate conversation. Um, and so I think the most recent outrage has been about what happened with the Department of Education. Just one of the departments, I believe a lot of people were basically let go. They weren't allowed to come into the federal buildings. And in a different department, I believe, they were offered leave, and several thousand government employees decided to take the government up on their offer and just take the check and go. And so these are some things that I want to bring to the conversation as we witness all of this unfold and we try to make sense of what's really happening and the direction that we might be going. So I believe it's probably over a year now. I talked about education and AI, and I linked that post in the comments of today's post. But I talked about some of the things I was seeing happen in education in the classroom and with AI. And so I have a bit of an update on that connects to what's happening. So one of the things that I feel like now, again, you guys, I'm Libra. I'm going to present sometimes opposing viewpoints because we have to bring everything into as much as we can see into our perspective in front of our eyes. And that's going to enable a more informed synopsis of what might be happening. So, on one hand, you guys, you ladies know that the system, we've been complaining about the system for decades now. We've been complaining about this system. People are broken, people are broke, people are burned out, people can't survive and thrive. Now, I'm not saying this is the reason why he's going about things, but I'm just saying we know the system is broke, right? Broken. And if we just zoom in, we're going to be looking at this through the lens of the Department of Education. The Department of Education is just one of the government departments. But because I'm an educator, I'm going to speak from that perspective. So if we look at our teachers, teachers, um, most teachers cannot thrive, cannot live a thriving life with teacher pay the way this society is set up. So if teachers can't thrive, they're the ones that are responsible for ushering in the next generation to fill all of our society's positions, doctors, lawyers, all of that, right? Teachers. Now, when we look at public education, each public classroom we need to view as a sample size of what's happening in our population or society at large. So our children are dealing with the same things that the world is dealing with. So I've got a class of about 50 ninth grade algebra students. And within this class, I probably have 5 students who are actually capable, able, and ready to learn. They're at the level that they're quote unquote supposed to be at as ninth grade students. 5 out of 50. Within this sample size, I've got children that are dealing with grief over some huge issues. I've got children that are just trying to get by, children that are just sleepy, tired, hungry. And I've got some students that are just completely absent. They're there, their body is there, but I don't know what's going on in their minds. So, teachers, now let's think about the role that AI has begun to play in our society. We're going to start with this window of education. So, most teachers have to use AI to meet the demands of their job. You guys know teachers are already, it's a job. Like you're always on, you're always talking, you don't get a break. Like you don't get to just sit somewhere or stand somewhere. Usually there's not much idle time. So teachers are having to use AI to meet the demands of their job, whether it be for lesson plans. Um, Sometimes it gets to the point of just decision fatigue. And hey, I don't even have the mental brain capacity in this moment to make this decision. So let me type this in to the AI and let ChatGPT, type this up in an email for me because my I've reached my capacity. Students are having to use AI as well to keep up with the demands of being a student. So, this is a daily problem for us in the classroom, telling them not to use AI. And there's every day there are new AI apps that make it easier and easier for them to just hold up their phone. They don't even have to type in anything now. They can get the app, hold up the phone, put it on the camera, let the camera take a picture of it, and the AI will spit back out the answers to them. So how much natural intelligence you think is really happening and going on in these classrooms? And now that AI has made it to students in the classroom, it was okay. So it's been in the hands of teachers, educators. And look, think about all the other fields and industries. They've had their hands on some form of AI for a long time. Probably, when we started to see the self-checkout cashiers. So, we're dealing with the little AI. They got the big AI. They got the bigger AI. If we've got some little AI in our hand, they've got the big AI. But the point I'm trying to make with what I'm saying here is that if we need AI to meet the demands of what is being asked of us, then what does that say about what is being asked of us? Asked of us. If we need AI to make a decision, if we need AI to write an email, if we need AI to finish the workday, if Walmart needs AI to run its stores because it needs the self-checkouts, okay, if your bank customer service needs, Betty or whatever her name is when you call customer service because they can't fill the seats or they just don't want to service their customers. Okay, so think about every interaction you have, wherever you spend money, wherever you have dealings with this system, there is some form of AI there. So, what I'm getting at is that this system has gotten so big and so much out of control that they now have to employ an AI to keep up with it. We've created a dependency on it, and our dependency on it is only going to continue to grow. Now, I'm not saying that there's a flip side to this because, hey, this could, there's so many great and wonderful things that could come from this, right? Yes, there is. I'm sure. Okay. Um, that exists. So now, so that was through the window and the lens of education, the Department of Education. Now I want to step back and just look through the other lenses of the other departments of the government. I want you to think about how many times you've gone into a government office and stood in a long line and had to wait, or gotten frustrated because of how the process went, or tried to get something done that you needed to get done related to the government and how complicated it may have been. When think about how many times you've actually had to interact with a federal agency and it wasn't complicated. Think about that. Or it wasn't just jumping through hoops and, having to go through an optical course just to get something done when dealing with a federal agency. Not too long ago, we had this guy right here, the CIA guy. What was his name? Andrew something, floating around to all the top um, pod podcasts and things talking about how outdated the CIA was and how they can't even get people, they can't even get they can't recruit good enough people to come work for the CIA. And this is our intelligence agency, supposed to be protecting us as a country. How many times have you let's even think about the churches. The church, the churches are now empty, with the exception of mega churches, which I assume that they're having some shifts as well. But for the most part, churches are empty. Where is the next generation? Where are they? And what are they doing? Where we know where their bodies are, but the question is, where are their minds? And what has happened? What has been introduced? What has been introduced into the cycle, the system that has sent them awry? Where are our values now? Not too long ago, I spoke about um, the um, the importance, how important I questioned the importance of politics, and if we should be raising up, training up our children, motivating them to go in political fields. And the same question could be posed about mathematical STEM fields, the criminal justice system, all of that. And in a roundabout way, I think I pretty much came to the answer of yes. Um, but that's another conversation. But my point in bringing all of that up is, where's the representation? Where are our children even in those fields? And will it be acceptable, susceptible to continue in this pattern? But when you go, when you walk into a restaurant, let's say a sit down restaurant, who's serving you? Who's in the kitchen versus who's running it? So the question of what was inserted into the cycle slash system, or where did our values change? And we can probably trace and connect it back to when we started interacting with machines more, computers more, and social networking. At some point, we started to value, I think, being connected in a wider way or over longer distances versus going deeper with those that were in our immediate physical vicinity. Now, I'm not saying one is right or wrong over the other. I'm only pointing out what I'm observing. So, at some point, let's say with Black Planet, we found value in connecting with, those that we went to middle school with, maybe that we didn't go to high school with. Or when we went to college, we found value in connecting with, students that were not studying the same topics as us, that we never saw, but they were at our university. We could get to know them a little bit better. And then it just spread from there. Not only students at your university or college, but at a neighboring university or college, or just other college students nationwide. And then it just eventually opened up to any and everyone. So we went wider and further and longer rather than deeper or higher with those in our immediate physical vicinity. I want you to think about, especially those that live alone. Okay, if you live with someone, then I want you to think about this in terms of who's outside of who you live with. But how many human to human interactions are you having? that doesn't involve a machine being in between that human to human connection. I want you to start to observe that. How often are you having actual human to human, immediate physical connection with? And then think about it in terms of who you're actually, because you may leave the house and go to the store and you actually see other humans physically, but these may not be humans that you actually experience physical touch with. So think about that. On the flip side of that, also, I think as our sort of separation has grown, I think our sensitivities have grown as well because when you have been just in your own by yourself, let's say, you get your energetic field, right? But if you've had extensive time just alone, and then when you go out and you're around other people, you're going to be more apt to witness, observe, and feel the shifts or the subtleties in the energetic fields. So, in a way, I think it's honing us and growing us and activating other senses within us when we have these periods of time where we're not connecting with, directly with humans. So that's something on the flip side. But I want you to consider, okay, shifting back to DOGE, okay, do you not think, or do you think that, hey, we've got a good enough case, we've got good enough problems and issues to, at this point, bring in some consultants to help understand the complexity of the problem, conduct an analysis of the problem, which has probably already been done before you got into office, right? Because they got busy real fast. Not outside of the fact that if we agree or disagree with the means or even with the motive, because those are separate conversations. But do you think that it's justifiable at this point that, hey, this system may be operating inefficiently, right? The national debt has only been growing, I believe. And the problems persist or grow. At what point do we wave the flag and say, hey, we need some help? Because this thing has grown out of control, this entire system. And maybe it's beyond our human capacity or one person's human capability. Maybe the problem is that big. And so it's like, hey, let's bring in an AI, the big AI, and let it solve the problem. So I think it's clear that they're going to be replacing a lot of the jobs with AI, the government jobs with AI, in the name of efficiency. Is that the right thing to do? I guess that's for us to decide and witness. But we do live in the realm of duality, and all things have a flip of the coin. You have to look at the other side of it. Where are we going ultimately? Also is a question we want to reflect on. Where is this taking us? And is it taking us in the direction that we would like to go? What can I even do about it? What place and space do we have amongst this machine? Because we definitely do. have a place and position in the whole thing. I, just like you, need to pay my bills each month. How are we choosing to get our bills paid each month? Is it at the expense of something or someone else? Is it for the betterment of our society, our collective? I tell you, I ask myself this every school year when I decide to go back and work in public education. And sometimes I'm very angry that, let's say, history, social studies, I support the way that they have chosen to teach our children history? No, but I'm supporting it every time I show up here. Am I? Now, wouldn't it be great if we could just hit the stop button or the pause button on this great system of a machine that we all are a part of? But unfortunately, that's not how it works. And who would have that authority anyways to say, we're just going to stop here. We're going to pause and we're going to do a do-over. No, it didn't work like that. Exactly. Um, so the question is, are we, have we been on autopilot? Okay. Have we been in bot status? This new word that the kids use, NPC and bots, you guys. At first, I thought it was hogwash, but I get what they're talking about. I get it and I see it. Who's a bot or an NPC, non-playable character is what it means. For those of you like me who just didn't know, it means non-playable character. I have a theory. How many times, and this doesn't just go for in the classroom. Like it's very obvious in a classroom, who's not there, who's just the body sitting there and they're not employing their higher faculties. But just in your life, in your world, you know, the carbon copies of, and this is not to shun anybody, but the carbon copies that we see of so what's supposed to be individuals, individuated personalities, but they're carbon copies of Instagram, what they've seen repeatedly on Instagram or in a rap video. And you ask them a question, and their responses, they don't have a personalized response. They just have something that you've heard repeated before to say. This is why I love teaching math because secondary mathematics requires more than just memorization. And one of the first things I always hear when it comes to teaching math is like, oh, you're never going to use that. When are you ever going to use that? And all that jazz. Well, the thing about it is the processes that you're taking your mind and your brain through when you're learning mathematics. You're teaching your brain critical thinking skills. logic reasoning, problem solving, innovative thinking, creativity, some of which you can get from secondary literature as well, but high school education. And one of the biggest problems in my sample size, which would be my classroom, that I see is that students resisting activating any sort of higher order thinking. See, basic memorization and all that you can do on autopilot. Just like you get in your car and you drive from point A to point B, your brain really didn't have to think about it, right? Because that's become such a mechanical thing. You can be thinking about the conversation you're going to have or, what you're going to cook for dinner all while operating a vehicle because that part is utilizing a different part of the brain. Primarily, higher order thinking comes from the prefrontal cortex part of the brain. Memorization and robotic things, that's the hippocampus. So, they want to, as an educator, they tell us, make sure you have them do higher order thinking activities. Ask them why they think this thing. Let them explain, let them justify their thinking. So when the bots that we see, the NPCs, is because only one part of their brain, primarily, they're just living out of the hippocampus. This is what learning and education, the value that we can find in learning and growing and educating, comes from thinking about more, thinking about how we're thinking about why we think a thing, all of that. There's all this talk about the light, right? Love and light, bring, a light worker and all that. And in the recent years, I started to hear more about dark, like dark matter, where previously the whole concept of the dark was mostly negative, right? Because it depends on how you use it, the word dark. And then I started to hear some use phrases like dark matter, which doesn't, they're not um, assigning a negative. It's not about it being a negative thing. It's just describing a thing, describing a thing. And so I started to see this in a different way. I have a theory that this idea of being like a light worker, a light bringer, light is synonymous with knowledge, new connection in the brain. Okay. So whenever our synapses send neurons across to each other, that's generating electricity and light. Have you ever seen the brain scans? It's all lit up because that's electricity. So light and electricity, I like to sometimes we can view those as being the same thing. So we think about our world and our universe. They say all is mind. Ultimately, everything is just consciousness. What is consciousness? Right? Animals aren't conscious, right? They're not, but they exist. So it'd be interesting to look at the brain activities of animals, right? I imagine, they're operating on instinct and kind of like on a in a bot type of way, right? I don't know how similar their brains are to ours, but I can see them operating in more of like bot status, right? They don't have the ability to reason like we do. We have all of these other parts of our brain that we can use. And they say that we only use 1% of our brain. That means to me that we're only tapped into 1% of our capacity as ultimately non physical beings operating and inhabiting a physical body. So, I hope you guys are getting what I'm saying. At the very minimum, we have to be engaging our children in thought, conversation, talk to them, read to them, let them imagine things, active, put them in spaces and places and experiences, and not just with our children, but we need to be doing this ourselves, where we can grow our consciousness, grow our awareness, grow our knowledge, information, grow our light, because everything that's in the dark is just the unknown. So the darkened parts of the brain is just the part that's not activated yet. It's just a theory, something I'm considering. So when you hear the word light and dark, I want you to try to not immediately start to assign negative connotations to things. Okay? You question everything. And that is my message for the day, for now. There are lots of points and things that I brought up that I want to go into more detail about, but basically that's all I wanted to share. I'm gonna go and see if I had any comments because I put everything. I can't really see anything. Let me see if there's a. Let me know how you're doing. I hope that you're doing well. I affirm that you're doing well. Let me see. There was a way for me to check the live stream. I hope I'm even live, y'all. My goodness. That'd be crazy if I'm not. I might not. Oh my God. Let me refresh. Okay. Oof. All right. I am good. All right. So there's no. Oh, it's private. No wonder. Let me see if my YouTube was private as well, because that means nobody saw this. See if this is on my YouTube. Yeah, I'm live there. All right. Well, I didn't have anybody join in, but let me check over here. Feel free to post your comments and your thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts and ideas about this topic and the adjacent topics. Until next time, wellness, prosperity, serenity. All right. Let's see how to get out of here. No.